It's 5:30. I'll call the meeting to order. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone to our meeting tonight. The next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Commissioners, have you reviewed the agenda, and do you have any modifications or additions to the agenda?
I have no adjustments.
I have none, Mayor.
Okay, if there's no modifications, then I'll accept a motion.
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next item is appointments. The Park Board, we have 3 terms that expired July 1st, 2020. All positions were eligible for reappointment, and each was interested in serving another term. So with that, I would make a motion that we reappoint Mark Coder, Todd Young, and Alex Warwick to the Park Board. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. The Board of Examiners, the Plumbers, we have 1 term expiring August 15th, 2020. The member is eligible for reappointment, so I would make a motion to appoint Chris Frye to that position.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Item C is the Historic Preservation and Resource Commission. We have 2 terms that expired January 1, 2020. Both members were eligible for reappointment and did express interest in being reappointed. So with that, I make a motion to reappoint Mark Easter and Thomas Hoferet to the Historic Preservation and Resource Commission.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Item D, the Tree Board. We have 1 term that expired June 1st of 2020. Applications are still being received, so if you're interested in serving on the Tree Board, please submit your application prior to August 7th, 2020. The next item on the agenda is presentations, and item A is a presentation from Main Street regarding their 2021 budget.
I'm walking slow. I was supposed to have a board member that joined me, but I think she got caught up. So we'll start with the slideshow. So we kind of put this together to show you some of the stuff that we host by ourselves downtown. The shopping events that we do downtown, the sidewalk sale, bring it on. This was a fall. This year we did a fall for Indy. We had a contest amongst the downtown merchants to decorate for Neowalla basically and try to spruce up the front of their building for Neowalla, and then this is the annual pub crawl. First Thursdays, they really started taking off in the last couple years. We were sad that they're being delayed this year until we are going to try to have them in August and September, and as you can see, they were really a good time. We also co-hosted the ICC Main Street Block Party with Woods Lumber, Labette Health. We do the open houses and the parade downtown. We're able to purchase some new Christmas lights. The top one is without them lit, and then the bottom one is lit up, and we did get 1 intersection done this year. Love Independence Day. We gave the public parking lot over there a spruce up. And we've recently added 30 hanging baskets downtown. And we do the Main Street Gift Certificate Program, which I put in your letter. Last year, we had a goal of, when I first started, we did $20,000 to $25,000 in Main Street gift certificates, and we had a goal to do 40 last year, and we hit that $40,009. So that was nice that we put back into the community. So here's Julie. Julie is a board member that's joining me tonight. So as you can see, you got our budget. We do operate on a very small budget, but we feel like we do a lot with that small budget. So did you have any questions about our, you guys, we appreciate your funding. Last year we did ask for $25,000 and you granted us that. We had every intentions of using that for Christmas ornaments and this, but when the pandemic hit, we decided to take that and do the Indy Gives Back with the Main Street Bucks. And so we gave that $5,000 that we hadn't budgeted for back to the community in Main Street dollars with the incentive. If they shop local, then we reimburse them $10 for every $100 they spent in Main Street member business. So, and then, as you know, we applied for the grant with Union Pacific and was awarded that. So we've sent the marketing stuff into Union Pacific. They have to approve everything that we put their logo on. So as soon as they approve our graphics and marketing information, we will roll out that, hopefully within the next week or 10 days. So we'll do another. So that'll be $10,000 that we're putting back in the community just in Main Street dollars that will be spent locally in small businesses mainly. So, Julie, you want to talk?
I'm sorry I got caught on the phone with a customer. So I just want to say that as a Main Street board member, I've been on Main Street now for 5 years, 6 years almost, and just the whole focus of Main Street is to put as much back into the community as we can. And I think Tabitha has done an excellent job of that. She has a staff of 1. We don't have a large staff. She does a lot of work, and I think if you'll talk to any of the retailers, especially in the downtown area, they would stand up and tell you that her efforts have helped bring people in the door and have helped increase our tax revenues here in Independence. So when you're investing in Main Street, you're investing in downtown Independence.
I do want to point out that you are about a third of our funding. We are funded 3 ways. We have city funding, our fundraiser, and then our membership drive. It's easy for someone to say, we want new Christmas ornaments, go do another fundraiser, but that's kind of been our philosophy, is not to go and ask the small businesses for more and more. We feel like our job is to help them make them a destination and bring business to them rather than doing another fundraiser. After I was on the job a week, I knew exactly what they were talking about when they said, we don't want to do any more fundraisers, because every business I went into, I could be standing there and somebody'd walk in and say, I'm here from such and such, and I'm looking for a donation. And so I knew then, I understood where they were coming from with not wanting to do more fundraising. So we just do the 1 fundraiser a year, and then the city funding and our membership drive. So we appreciate your funding desperately, because we don't want to have to get into looking for other ways to, or go to our small businesses to get funded.
So our extra $5,000 just gave you a little more flexibility on how you can put more money back into the local businesses and the economy.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the $5,000 you gave us this last year went directly back into the local economy.
Yeah, that worked out really well for the timing, the situations that was going on, and a good example of the imagination your board has on how to reach out and be an asset to the businesses. So.
Well, and we're really fortunate. I know, everybody says, oh, there's grant funding out there. Well, grant funding is not as easy to find. And Ray Rothgibb is our board chair, and he's very creative, and he helped actually write up a lot of, it was kind of a group effort to put that together, but Ray helped write the grant. And, we do look for those whenever possible. And Tabitha is involved in the Main Street organization in the state of Kansas, is bringing back funding for the state Main Street organization. And so Tabitha's done a lot of work, just keeping her ears open, working with other main streets to pick up ideas and funding sources that we can find. But we were very lucky this year in that we had our Main Street fundraiser really the week before the pandemic really hit home. And, this next year, who knows what that's going to look like. And we're getting ready to start our membership drive. And I'm sure there will be small businesses that just can't afford that membership this year. So, your funding may actually help us get through a spot this year until we hope that things either get back to normal or we figure out what the new normal looks like and we can continue to help our local retailers thrive in this community.
Good. Commissioner Ususi, do you have any questions concerning the budget?
The Main Street is a program that's being handled through the state of Kansas. Is that through the USDA Department of Agriculture? Are they the source behind that?
I don't think so.
I think it's the
They're not.
Department of Commerce
Department of
is,
Commerce.
Department of Commerce? Okay. And then any business within the city limits of Independence are eligible to become a member of Main Street? Okay.
we
and-
actually have had several individuals, that really aren't business owners that have stepped up to buy memberships in the last couple of years because they like the efforts that Main Street is doing to help, stabilize and support the retail in the community.
And what is the cost of a membership?
Our retail is $125 a year, our service industry is $175, and a family membership is $50.
Okay. All right, thank you. It's good to know.
Commissioner Hayes, do you have any questions regarding the budget?
No, I do not, but I do want to reinforce that I think that you're doing a good job bolstering the downtown area, the central business district. That commercial center is very important to all of us in terms of the prosperity of the town and the funding of the city government. So please continue to do all that you're doing to reinforce the idea that Independence is the destination where you can get your needs met and find what you're looking for and have a good time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And do you have any more to add?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, thank you
Thank you.
for coming.
Thank you very much.
I will, one more thing. We do have baskets for the 100 block of South Penn. The brackets got installed last week, and we just need to get a way to water them. I didn't realize there was no water down on that end. So they're currently in my backyard taking up a lot of space, because those are bigger than they look. So that will help on that block where Brothers and Sawyers and all that is, and the funeral home. So it'll look nice down there, too, so that we do have those baskets coming also.
Okay, great.
So, yes. All right.
All right, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Yes.
Kelly, do you want us to move on this now, or will it just be included in the budget, and as we review the budget?
I think
Take
at
it.
your July 15th work session, that's when we'll talk, you can talk about this and the AWOL one.
Yeah, we'll just consider it all at one time.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you. Next item on the agenda is our consent agenda. Since there were no modifications to the agenda when we adopted it, then at this time, I will just call for a motion.
I make a motion that we adopt the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Items for commission action. Item A, consider an agreement with Trans Systems for engineering services related to an EDA grant application for Whiskey Creek drainage improvements from Sycamore to the Union Pacific Railroad.
This is the EDA grant agreement or agreement for engineering services related to that grant that we discussed at the last commission meeting. It's just it helps show preparedness when applying for the grant. And if the grant isn't received, there's a clause in the contract that the contract would be null and void. So.
Your proposal in the grant for design was $72,000, and then the inspection of $110,000. And inspection, is that a full-time inspector through construction or periodic?
It is. It's a lot of times we refer to it as construction engineering and inspection, or CEI, but yes, it is a full-time inspector. We based those fees on the cost estimate that we had prepared. So if we go through the grant process and there needs to be modifications to that, we can certainly amend the contract somehow, up or down, however the final project is defined.
Commissioners, do you have questions?
No, this is consistent with my expectations.
I'm good, Mayor.
Well, if there's no further questions, then might as well call for a motion.
I move to authorize an agreement with Trans Systems for engineering services relating to an EDA grant application for Whiskey Creek drainage improvements from Sycamore to the Union Pacific Railroad, subject to the city attorney's approval.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Item B, consider an administration agreement with Southeast Kansas Regional Planning Commission to prepare the application and provide administrative services for the EDA grant for Whiskey Creek drainage improvements from Sycamore to the Union Pacific Railway. And just to clarify, I think it can look kind of confusing. What we're doing is the grant has to be submitted, and we need to secure the services of an engineer to design the project, and that information needs to be reflected in the grant. That's why Sean mentioned that if the grant is not given, the contract becomes null and void, and their services during the grant phase, there is no cost to that. The only time their contract fees will come into play is after the grant is accepted. So, that's why I want to make it clear of what's going on, that we approve the contract with them for the future work, but we still have to do the application part, and that's what we're addressing now, is the application for the grant. So.
That is correct. Susan Gilmore with Southeast Kansas Regional Planning Commission is the person that we work with on this, and they are grant administrators. They've done a lot of grants for the cities, for our city over the years. And this agreement's the same. If we do not get awarded the grant, then the administration fees are not charged. And if we do get awarded the grant, the administration fees are paid by the grant. So there's really no cost to the city on the administration grant or application agreement. So
looking at the grant, it seemed like her contract, that the fee that they would get would be approximately $20,000.
yes, yes,
and that is part of the grant fee.
yes.
Okay. Commissioner Hayes, do you have any questions concerning the grant application?
Not at this time.
I'm good, Mayor.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then I'll call for a motion.
I make a motion to move to authorize an agreement with Southeast Kansas Regional Planning Commission to prepare the application and provide administrative services for the EDA grant for Whiskey Creek drainage improvements from Sycamore to the Union Pacific Railroad, subject to the city attorney's approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Next item on the agenda is consider authorizing Leadership Independence to place temporary parking stanchions downtown and to accept responsibility of the stanchions after their placement.
Good evening. My name is Brittany Holm, and this is Cody Westerholt, and we represent Leadership Independence class cohort 2019 and 2020. So our class project is this beautiful parking stanchion over here to my right. We would like to propose replacing the police barricades that are currently throughout our downtown area to help the local businesses with the to-go parking option for their services during the pandemic that we're currently in. We ask that we would like to deliver 20 of these items to the City of Independence on behalf of Leadership Independence in the Chamber. And we will replace them where the existing parking stanchions currently are, or parking barricades currently are. After we deliver those, we would ask that the city would then take ownership of them and store them, and the city would also have the option to change the sticker on the front. It's a vinyl sticker that's on an aluminum base. And so that sticker on the front's replaceable, and you could utilize them for any community events, Neowalla, anything at the park and zoo, whatever y'all determine in the future. But this is our class project, and we would ask that you would receive these and approve their placement downtown.
Okay. Commissioner?
Do you have any questions?
How many barricades are currently in the downtown area?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
16 locations and 2 barriers per location? 32?
I believe.
Okay, so you're looking at 32 more? No? Okay,
I don't think there's 16 locations. I think there's about 8 to 10 locations
okay.
with a total of
Of about 20?
16 to 20.
16
All
to
right.
20 barricades, okay.
Just curious.
It's,
I think I think they're quite attractive. I'm sure they're designed to stay upright and in the wind and those kinds of things.
Absolutely, and the base is an umbrella base, which is 40 pounds, and then the aluminum post will be secured to the post by an epoxy, and then the top will also be attached by some type of adhesive epoxy, so they can't be taken out of the bottom.
also-
And then and again, the signage can be replaced. They stand about 4.5 feet tall. We did check with the city, and they do meet ADA requirements.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
and in the packet information that we got, to replace the vinyl stickers were estimated from $7 to $10.
Yes, and you know, we're designing it with the kind of the fancier sticker to match the outline of the aluminum sign right now. You can put a plain, you know, if it's just a temporary thing. Those are weathered for a 5-year vinyl sticker on it right now, and so there's additional options that may not cost that much to replace on if you choose to, and you can get the adhesive off relatively easily.
They look great.
Thank you.
Really, I like the concept, I like the design, and yeah, huge improvement, to say the least.
So did I understand that you're going to place them initially, or you're just going to deliver them to the city to do the replacement?
We will do whatever you would like for us to do. We would like to do some type of a ceremony where we give them over to y'all, and we'd be happy to replace them if the other barricades are gone, or we can put them up and then the city can come take the barricades afterwards, or whatever's the best on your end we can do.
Yeah, I think working with Kelly and Mike to work the details out.
Sure.
But that would be nice to get some publicity for your work and
Sure.
to the before and after.
Sure.
Yeah,
Our intent is to have them placed within the next 2-3 weeks.
yeah. They will be a great improvement, and the flexibility for future events. The possibility there is limitless. And with the number of 20, multiple use, you could still use some there. Farmers market, any event downtown, they can really come in handy and be a nice replacement of the construction barriers.
Sure. I would also like to note that we've purchased everything locally as well. All of the items are sourced locally, and then we utilize the Fab Lab to make a lot of to do a lot of the fabrication. So.
Well, great.
That's a good idea.
Commissioners, any further questions?
I have none.
I'm good, Mayor.
Then I'll call for a motion.
I move to allow Leadership Independence to place 20 temporary parking stanchions downtown to accept the 20 stanchions as a donation from Leadership Independence.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank
Well
you.
done.
Thank you.
Item D, consider an engineering design service agreement with H.W. Lochner Incorporated for remarking runway 17-35 at the Independence Municipal Airport as part of a Kansas Airport Improvements Program grant.
Mayor, this is a grant that the city has been awarded. We originally applied for it for a previous year, didn't get it reapplied, then got it the next year. And so this is the design services agreement that is part of that project.
So the engineering services for design alone is $15,000. The engineering fee for contract administration or construction, that would be submitted later for review.
Yes.
And this was just one of the grants that we applied for, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, there's some others on some other improvements on another grant that is in process as well.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions regarding the contract?
I do not.
I do not.
If there's no further questions, then I will call for a motion.
I make a motion that we move to authorize an engineering design services agreement with H.W. Lochner Incorporated for remarking runway 17-35 at the Independence Municipal Airport as part of a Kansas Airport Improvement Program grant.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Item E, consider renewing health insurance with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Kelly?
Mayor and Commissioners, this is our annual review. Last year, we had a big reduction in rates, and this year it actually went up. We had some money in a cash reserve that they utilized for this that we were able to take advantage of that took it from an estimated 15% increase to a 10% increase. And these are the rates as shown on the slide that would be our renewal rates. I included our rates from last year and then the previous year so that you can see where we're at now is actually lower than we were 2 years ago, but higher than last year.
So for the year, we're looking at an increase of $95,930.28.
Looks about right.
Okay. Okay. And that was equivalent to a
10.32%
increase over the previous year,
Yes.
which is still less than what we were paying in
2018 to 2019,
2019.
it was
Okay.
higher.
And these are all based on, the rates are all based on what was paid out the previous
Yes.
year. So if you have a lot of claims,
Yeah.
one particular year,
And they
you're
could
going to
be
see an
health-related
increase?
claims, or they, for the health insurance, or they could be on the drug side. Any
Okay.
of that affects our premiums.
Okay. And then the exact reversal when there's not many claims and those costs go down.
Right.
So it reflects in the premiums that are charged. So that's why you're seeing a roller coaster effect like that.
And we are going to work with our employees on some education during our health fair on how to use their drug card to be more effective and efficient and economical. There are options for other drugs. We try to push generics. Right now, we have about 88% of our prescriptions which are on generics, which is good, but there's some really high-cost ones that we have that drives up the cost, that there could be other alternatives. So some of that is education, because if we can't get the drug cost under control, we may have to look at a different drug plan that could triple what, right now they can get like a 90-day supply for one copay. Well, it would go to a 30-day supply, and the copays would go up for those drugs. And so basically, we want to give them an opportunity to try to turn around that behavior on the drug side, so that before we go up and change our plan. But if it keeps going up, we may have to go to that other plan next year.
Okay. And on the policy itself, it's generic brand first, and then if a generic's not available, then?
Yes, and they have the name brand, and then they have like the special formulary drugs. There's 3 categories.
Right. Okay. All right, thank you, Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Hayes, do you have any questions?
The decrease that we experienced from 2018 to 19, was that driven by an experience?
We had a
Rating
low
of
rate
some
of
kind?
claims, and our usage was down, and so we were able to save some funds on that. We have some big claims this time, plus the drug use has increased quite a bit as far as the expense.
And
Thank you.
This is separate from workers' comp. That's different.
Yes, that's totally
program.
different.
Do we have a policy or a schedule to look at bidding other companies? And
We don't have a policy per se as far as insurance, we do have a procurement policy. We have bid out insurance with other companies in the past. In fact, at one time, we did go to another company, and it was great the first year, and then after that, it was not so great. And then we lost our drug card and had some other things that happened and ended up going back to Blue Cross. There's also an option to join on the state's plan, but you pay an upcharge if you're not actually a state employee. And the last time we looked at that, it was more expensive to do that than to have our own group. But yes, there are other options. But we haven't done that we haven't moved to a different company lately, but in the past when we did it, we did not have a good experience.
I was just wondering how our process worked, that, healthcare insurance varies quite a bit from company to company. And,
Right.
The one thing you do want when you have a claim is someone that's going to take care of you and not have to
Right.
worry about arguing.
And you
for
did mention work
coverage.
comp, and even though it's different, they are very related. Because if our health insurance is not good, you will see more claims on the work comp. It happens.
I know with the work comp insurance, do you have a quarterly safety meeting?
Yes, we do. It was delayed because of the pandemic, but we're
Yeah.
getting ready to have one at the health fair coming up.
So what you're thinking is maybe taking that concept into the healthcare and just help
Yeah.
educate
We're
on-
having a representative from Blue Cross come talk about the drug program and how you can better utilize it. And they're also going to talk to the employees about some incentive programs they have on stopping smoking and tobacco use, because we're going to look at bringing that tobacco policy back to you guys on your next regular agenda. And so that would, if that was adopted, then that would be just within a few weeks after that, that they would have that education opportunities and some incentive programs that Blue Cross has for that as well.
I have a question on that Blue Cross and Blue Shield. They're nationwide, is that not right? Or they're in most states?
Yes, it is Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas that we have, because they separate them by state, but they
Right.
are all over the nation.
So on the drug plan itself, is it, are they basing it by state Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Kansas, or are they looking at, on that drug purchasing, are they looking at the entire Blue Cross and Blue Shield nationwide as a buying power to seek a better price on drug purchases?
Well, I mean, you can go to any pharmacy you want to get your drugs. They do have a mail-in option that you can order your drugs through a service that they have as well.
Right.
But I would have to ask Rita that question. I don't know the answer to that, but I'd be
Okay.
happy to ask her.
Okay, I just didn't know whether they used their power, if they were nationwide in most of the states of the country, that they use that as a buying power to get a better price on drugs, and then those drugs would be uniform costs spread out to whatever states they are located in.
Well, I know they have contract prices on about everything with all their providers, and they have a contracted price usually that Blue Cross and Blue Shield will pay.
Okay, all right, thank you, Kelly.
Okay, any further questions?
I'm good, Mayor.
If there's no further questions, then I'll call for a motion.
I move to approve the renewal rates for the 2020-2021 contract year, September 1 through August 31, with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and authorize staff to sign any related documents.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Item F, consider ballot language for renewing the special use sales tax.
Mayor and Commissioners, this is something we've been working hard on to get to this point. I just wanted to remind you of the process that we need to follow for renewing this, so I would really like to get direction tonight so I can get with the bond attorneys and they can have that resolution ready for you, because I want to make sure we meet all the time schedules. As you know, on the 3rd and the 23rd, the leadership team and the commission worked together on this project as to come up with several potential projects that were discussed and ultimately refined. These are and I know it's hard to read on this, and I apologize, but I did include this in your packet. All the projects were then condensed into major major projects and recategorized into the matrix, which is shown here. And then, as a reminder, this is the ballot language that was utilized for the previous sales tax that is currently in place. And then some options that we talked about at the last meeting were to assign a specific percentage for mill levy debt repayment, and it was mentioned 35 to 40%, and combine the remaining three categories into a second larger percentage to provide flexibility. And then another option that was discussed was to assign a specific percentage to each specific budget bucket, which would be 35% to mill levy debt reduction, 25% economic development, 25% buildings and facilities, and 15% streets, sidewalks, and ADA. So I'm just needing direction. Now I have the projects. I need to know the percentage and how you would like that crafted so that I can get with the bond attorneys and we can get that resolution drafted.
Okay. You know, when we discussed this at the work session, you know, of course, I was more in favor of looking at the two groups to give us flexibility with one group, the mill levy debt repayment, And then the second category that would be titled Economic Development Building Fund, Streets, Sidewalks, and ADA, that it gave us more flexibility to deal with projects coming up and then utilize some of our other designated money, with the revenue from the franchise tax. We have about $335,000 coming in annually. So, we've got different places that we could come in with grants from KDOT, both for streets and highways and the airport, that we can supplement. So instead of kind of restricting ourselves to the percentages that we saw and some of the things we experienced in the first bond or first special use sales tax vote, where we would have money in one of the quarters that we really needed that money, in another quarter we couldn't transfer. So with the broad spectrum, we can be more flexible in addressing projects as they come up, and looking at the mill levy and debt repayment, where we've got some projects that we're considering now that we could increase from 25 to 35 or 40% to include these future projects, would give us more flexibility in that. So I see the advantage of the two categories over the four.
Well, I understand your logic, Mr. Mayor, that it does hamper flexibility when you assign these buckets to specific types of projects, when you don't know exactly what the projects are that are in the queue, and you don't exactly know how much each of those projects is going to cost. So you don't know whether you're getting the right percentage in each of the buckets. It is, however, our wish that after we leave the commission, and our next the next group of commissioners are seated, that they would also see it that way, and that they would use the monies in a consistent manner with what's originally intended for it. However, when you bucket it broadly as the first option there, that does give the latitude for future commissions to perhaps, there's a lot of elections in 10 years' time, and so a lot of people pass through these seats as commissioners, and they could deviate from the original intent. And therefore, I could imagine a worst-case scenario where a commission might decide not to fund streets and move all of that money into one of the other buckets, which would be a mistake. But it wouldn't be something that we would do, but it might be something that future commissions might be in some way drift into that possible worst-case scenario. One of the things, though, that I would like to elevate is that in terms of the ballot language, I believe it's positive and constructive that we continue to list some detail in terms of, even if we bucket it into a large single category for all of them, that we leave the detailed language that would be inclusive of all of those words, including economic development, including buildings and facilities, including streets, sidewalks, and ADA, so that the voters see that item in that list that they identify with. And so that will help the ballot language, and it will help the ballot measure if each of the voters can see some element within the language that they identify with as positive and that they can see that that would be beneficial to the city and to themselves. So that's my input so far.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it needs each of the four categories identified, and I do see what you're saying, that we can be in agreement now of how that money would be distributed in the benefits, but we don't know the future. That you're right, it could, if you have two categories. And that's, I guess I think we have to have a list with the cost of the projects that we're projecting for the 10 years and some flexibility there, but you can't tie all those in to a description in the ballot language.
No.
So, in that sense, if we had them identified, we've got it guaranteed that this is where we're going, but it's not practical to make a 3-page ballot question.
No, it's not. But
I think, I see what you're saying too. With, we got to guarantee that once we start today, that it'll continue on in that direction, that we don't allow, because what we're doing is we're giving the public our word that this is what's going to happen. And as much as we can guarantee that, we need to set it in action, that it will continue with the word that we say today is still relevant 10 years from now, as much as possible.
As much as possible, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Gentlemen, I agree with what both of you said, but it's like anything that we do here. The gentlemen or gentlewomen that come up here and replace us down the road, even the things that we're doing now and moving forward on, they're all subject to review and to be modified or replaced if such commissioners that are elected decide to do that. I mean, there aren't any lock solid guarantees that this will continue, but what we're trying to do here is set that pathway to where the people that follow us, we will be able to continue on that. They will be able to buy into what we're trying to do as far as set up a vision of what independence will look like in the future. And that'll be the selling point to the voters, because we're going to continue what's already been started. We're not going to go back and try to reinvent something, but we like the process that's set up, and we're going to use it to keep moving forward and making some of these long overdue improvements and have a funding source for it. When you start getting a little complicated on some of the language in this ballot, then sometimes you bring some confusion in there. But I like the point that if you identify in a generalized situation of without being specific, but these are what these different pots are going to be used for, people buy into it. They say, well, someone may see, we really need streets and sidewalks, and I see they're going to commit. They're going to commit, and this is a long-range plan that they're looking at. There's something in there for everybody that they will like, and they'll be more supportive of it. And I don't want to complicate it to the point to where it's bringing a little confusion to the process. It seems to me like if you get your point across and it's easy to understand, they can buy into it that there's something for everybody, whatever they want out of this, then it's just easier for them to process, for people to process and move on.
One thing maybe is kind of identifying to one of the things we've talked about, Lacey mentioned with the way it was set up now, that, and I think you referenced it to Commissioner Yususi, the 0.25% that was going to streets, that the money is still going to streets, but it was streets that were issued, the bonds were issued to do. So the money that comes into that bucket has to go transferred to the mill levy debt repayment. So the public looks to see, well, where is that much streets going annually? Well, it's going to do what we did at the beginning, that, you know, if we're gonna do streets under mill levy and debt repayment, then we should put those projects in mill levy and debt payment, not out of streets, so that the portion that goes for streets is
Right.
actually streets that you see being done from that amount of money, you know?
Yeah.
And the same, you know, with each one, like economic development, you look at the money that's generating there. You know, Kelly and I have talked about that economic development is a broad term, that some streets could be economic development. You know, if it's something going into the industrial park to improve it, that would be viewed as economic development, or is it viewed as streets, sidewalks, ADA? So, you know, maybe some clarification that if we're looking at economic development, identifying the incentives, or, you know, we talked about the including healthcare, but, you know, some identifier that breaks it down to show a little more direction and for future use without getting so wordy that it becomes cumbersome. But
Well, that's where your flexibility is going to come from then, because you will determine whether, just like you stated, is this street project, is it part of an economic development, or is it streets and sidewalks and ADA, or is it something that we're going to bond out and make payments on, so it should fall into another category to draw from that pot? So the flexibility is actually how we interpret where they fit at in these categories, is giving us our flexibility.
But we could say that streets and sidewalks are going to be milling, overlay of existing streets, repairs of existing streets, and replacement of existing sidewalks.
Right.
And that streets, new streets would be considered economic development, and new walkways would be economic development. So there's the direction, again, in the future, that as we leave office, that the intent that we're talking about today continues on and gives more direction. But, you know, it looks simple, but for what we're trying to do is talk 10 years down the road. We really have to give it thought. And I think looking at our first 10 years is important to see what came up and address our shortfalls in that process. And you notice that we've done that in the form that it's streets, sidewalks, and ADA. ADA, we recognize it is all tied to streets, so we combined it instead of the separate category. And ADA on buildings is going to be dressed as building and facilities. So what if we look at developing the wording, kind of a rough draft of wording, leave the percentages as X's now that we can fill in, but let's look at the wording of the ballot statement, and then we can come back and address the percentages. But let's look at how we would word this first.
I like what, one of the things you said, and that is that some of the terminology could be clarified, for instance, economic development, because not everyone has the same definition of economic development. So in this particular ballot issue, or the ballot language, we might give an example or two of where we think this would most likely be utilized. And that would help people understand what we're talking about.
And the same with the other categories too, because, you know, when you read that, then I'm thinking, man, where are you going to spend $800,000 a year on economic development? Initially, I don't know, but then if you look at supporting healthcare, or, you know, at one time we put out that we were going to offer healthcare agencies $3 million. Well, you know, that's a couple $100,000 a year. So, you know, you can look at the different aspects and say, well, we're going to use for advertising. We've got our sites we've got to prep. We've got our sites we have to maintain. You know, you can see that there's some significant activity in economic development that will help us market our industrial parks that we haven't been able to because of trying to use general fund to do that. And it is expensive to go in and remove trees and to mow and to keep the trees out and maintain the lot or do some improvements, entrance, pavement, things like that. So, you know, maybe what we need to do is look at the wording, and I don't know if Kelly, you could, from listening to our discussion, we tasked Kelly with coming up with a recommendation to bring to us to look at what could be considered, and then we'll refine it from there. Instead of trying to do it all in one big leap, let's look at what we've talked about and look at a draft that we could consider for the next step before we go on into the actual sending it, so we can refine it again. Would that be agreeable with the commission?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would be agreeable to that also. I do have one question that's not really related to the ballot language in this, but it's something that I've talked about and we've discussed before in the past, but on our emergency equipment like pumpers and ambulances and fire trucks. You know, with those costs, a new pumper is probably $500,000 to $600,000 range. A new fire truck with costs rising between 3% and 5% a year, it's conceivable in over a 20-year span, the lifespan of a fire truck, that $1.1 million cost could actually be $2.2 million down the road. Where does these percentages that we're looking at these categories, where does that actually fall in, or will we go back to just a lease purchase for these equipments? Because I know we're trying to get grants on the pumpers, but a worst case scenario, we are just going to fall back on a lease purchase and set these payments out for 10 years or whatever, or are we going to look at maybe some of this money as being a funding source to provide upgrades on that equipment without trying to scramble to come up with $2.2 million or a down payment on a $2.2 million fire truck?
Equipment in that building and facilities and equipment, because one of the projects that was identified was related to public safety, which we did talk about, equipment and communications and things like that. So I think we could include it in that category. And
Yeah.
I can just reword it.
I think we need to include it in this special use sales tax in some point because of the things we ran into, replacing the ladder truck and the engine. We can't depend upon grants, but then there's so much expense that we have, and looking at property valuation, the fluctuation there, and where this way that it generates. Well, I think we need to look at the overall. I think Lacey figured that back in March, the special use sales tax had generated $14 million. So instead of looking at each year, a quarter, we need to look at how are we going to spend and utilize $14 to $15 million of sales tax revenue for the benefit of the city that's going to offset our ad valorem and our other sales tax coming in. So it gives us a much broader base. So as long as it's included, Kelly, you can
Yeah, I can do
write
that.
something up and let us look at it to start with. So if that's acceptable, then we'll consider tabling this item for now.
Indeed, yes.
Okay.
I agree.
And I would like to just say one thing. You just take into account that 15% on streets and sidewalks and ADA is going to be a very small amount compared to what we had last time, because we actually had 50%, because ADA was its own thing, and then you had 25% streets and sidewalks. So the amount of work we'll be able to do is going to be drastically reduced over what we did previously. So I just want you to be aware of that.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're going to leave the percents as X's for now. Let's
Okay.
look at how we word it and how we're looking at what to be included, and then we'll come back and address the
All right.
percentage. Yeah.
Yep, I'll leave them
Let's-
blank.
Let's look at it as step by step.
Yeah.
First, our wording, and next percentage.
And I will utilize the projects identified in our session to craft that language.
Okay.
Okay, great. So
Do we need a motion to table?
for record, let's do that. Could I have a motion?
I move we table the consideration of ballot language for the renewal of the special use sales tax.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. Okay, next item on the agenda is discussion. Item A, discuss programming for city facilities.
Staff has been working with Trainer to look at the programming, and has been working with departments to take another look at that, to see what we can fit where, basically. And it's not including just the 1916 City Hall, it's also including the Public Works and Water Sewer facilities. So we're trying to look at all the different departments, and that is in progress. We have been working on that. So Mayor, I know you'd asked for this to be added to the agenda. You may have something to add to that.
Yeah, I had asked Kelly if she could work with the department heads to prepare a list of equipment that is in what would be a Public Works department, and also identify the equipment that needed to be stored inside in a heated building, or just covered, or that needed power for block heaters or heaters during the winter, and the relationship of the equipment for actual design that would all be necessary. So trying to get ahead of the game, and working with Terry and Mike, we discussed some of the actions and the departments. And I think the key thing, as we were going through things, things started churning. And it was like, okay, I think we can do this. And you could see, hey, you know, if we're together, there's going to be more cooperation. There's going to be more sharing of manpower. There's going to be sharing of equipment, that if we're caught up here, well, these guys can go over here and help. And, you know, I think the obvious was coming out that through one location with the leadership together with the crew, that it's going to be a great improvement for the city. And it's amazing as you start looking, and Kelly had printed an aerial of the land that is available next to sanitation, and as you started looking and talking, you know, a lot of options and a lot of possibilities came together that could see that the transition would be an improvement.
Especially now that West Maple is going to be fixed, it's actually going to be a great road for them to go off on to start their routes and work, so.
And looking at the program space for the 1916 building, Trainer was going to go back and refresh their mind. We talked to them about an actual schedule so it can continue to move forward. And they were going to be able to get back to reviewing it the next week or two. So. Ideas?
Well, while we're on the subject, since we are talking to Trainer and engaging with them on this, I know that it's not their responsibility to do so, but I would like to see a parallel or a concurrent project initiated, and it's possibly a finance director job, or at least it's a finance director-led job, and that is to answer the question that I've been asked by citizens of Independence and taxpayers, and that is that what are the true cost savings that we will experience by initiating this 1916 City Hall building renovation and relocating the city into that structure. At one point in time, it was discussed that what the costs are to remain in the temporary City Hall building, and weigh that against what the costs are then to move into 1916 City Hall. In addition to the construction costs, I know there will be relocation costs, and then at some point in time, we would also recognize savings in terms of energy costs and operating costs, and perhaps even maintenance and service-related savings. But these are the elements of what I would call a cost-benefit analysis, so that when we initiate the next phase of the 1916 City Hall building renovation, we know what the cost savings are going to be, we know what the advantages of cost are going to be, and we can demonstrate to the taxpayers that we will be able to lower their tax burden or lower the costs of city operations by initiating a $5 million or whatever, however many $1 million contract for renovation.
At one point, and I'm going back memory, but I'm thinking that the projected cost of, I'm trying to think what the renovated 1916 City Hall, what they based that on. But I believe they shot a figure of $135,000 in O&M cost. Trainer did at one time. I was just trying to determine what that was, what that structure looked like at the time. But for some reason, $135,000 stuck in my mind, and that's going back, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago now, at least.
Yeah, there were some cost projections during some of the preliminary plans, but we need to know.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
'cause we saw when we went into the temporary City Hall building, the projection for operation expense was maybe 180 annually, and it's 430. So what we need is accurate numbers.
The
And-
best we can get, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
and the previous numbers fluctuated. It was around in the numbers you're talking about, but that's something that definitely we need to look at, comparing the cost, that if we stay there, I know initially it was going to need a new roof, look at where we're going to be to compare everything. And with the change of HVAC systems, I think in the roofing, they should be able to give us some pretty accurate operating expenses with both buildings now. So that would be something to bring out for comparison, to evaluate the two systems. And whichever way you go, you've always got maintenance. We're going to eventually have, if you get a new car and you got an old car, they both are going to require maintenance, just at different levels to the service. So I think as we
Yeah, I'm just
continue
asking-
our discussion with Trainer, that's a point we need to
I'd just like,
include in the discussion, that we have an idea what those figures will be.
indeed, and that we've got some experts involved and engaged right now. We should be able to put some projections of cost alongside
Right.
this that would help us understand and buy into the next step.
Right, and even if we need accurate costs, we could secure their services and their engineers to do an evaluation of the temporary City Hall to list the full range of expenses we would be having there.
I'm hopeful that we can get that, because that the looking back at our operating costs does not tell us the full story, because we're currently have systems in the temporary City Hall building that are at a certain age and are aging at 1 year per year. So they're approaching some kind of a crisis point where they'll have to be replaced or repaired.
Sure.
And we need to know how much that's going to be and how many years away that is and what is the likelihood of its occurrence. And I don't know what a relevant time frame would be, but probably 20 to 25 years we need to see out into the future in terms of aging systems.
Yeah, the more complex the systems, the more maintenance and more
Indeed.
critical it could be. You get,
So it increases over, all those types of maintenance costs increase over time until some kind of
Right.
sentinel event where system failure and you got to go back to
That's right.
scratch and start over.
Well, that's a good point to bring out and then include in our discussion and evaluation with them. Okay?
I believe the last year that I looked at O&M at the 1916 City Hall, that amount fell in between $109,000 and $110,000 for the year. But I also remember about on where the temporary City Hall is now, in there 120 tons of chiller capacity on the facility now, which was when the original old part of the hospital and the round were part of that facility, and those facilities are gone. So, and then with the replacement cost of at least $2,500 per ton, you start adding up real quick what the replacement of that is. So, a lot of things to consider, but yeah, I think you're right. We need to.
That's why
Get some costs nailed down.
that's why it's not obvious.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of different considerations, and that's why it's not obvious to me that it's, you know, that we need to spend $5 million. However, I'd like it to be obvious, not only to me, but to the rest of the taxpayers,
Right.
that this is the correct direction for the city to move.
Good point. Thank you. Okay, then, if Kelly, I think we're ready for reports. Under reports, item A, 223 West Main Street update. David?
There's nothing to report, Mayor.
Okay, no new information.
No new information.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions, or are you content, ready to go to item B?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm good.
Item B is 2020 census update.
Mayor and Commissioners, we are in first place right now, so that's good. We do need to get our responses up. The bottom left is a banner that Joanne has designed, that we're going to put those in 4 strategic intersections around town in the right-of-way, just to kind of remind people about filling out the census. We wanted a short message, and we included the phone number because a lot of those neighborhoods we're having trouble getting responses from do not have internet access, or they're not filling it out through the internet. So we're providing that phone number as well. So that's part of our efforts to get the message out on the census. Also, the Women for Independence are doing some voting things around town, and they are also pushing the census as part of that. Leah Shepard is on our Complete Count Committee, and she is giving out information on those to try to help reach some other groups. I think they're setting out like G&W and things like that at different times to push that message out. So that's where we're at on the census.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Have we included a flyer in our water bill mailings?
We had
on that? Maybe earlier in the process?
We had a full-page ad in the newsletter, last newsletter.
Okay.
That was all about the census, but we could look at doing some additional flyers if you would want to.
Maybe a reminder for those that still haven't.
Right. And I know the Census Bureau, with the emails I'm getting, they are sending out quite a few flyers through them as well. So
okay.
they are getting postcards from the Census Bureau directly that I know are going out because I'm getting the emails about when they go out. So they are getting those.
Okay. I just didn't know whether they had already sent out all the notices and.
Yeah, if they haven't responded, they are sending them postcards and things. And they are going to start going out and going door to door at some point. They said they're starting to meet with the groups and things like that. So they are lifting their stay-at-home for their census workers.
Okay. So that may not be necessary on our part if they're doing a follow-up.
Well, I know
on
that
this.
they are sending postcards out, and they're still planning on doing their door-to-door.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Kelly.
412 South First, David?
Mayor, I have considered this as a dangerous and unsafe structure and have requested or in the process of getting 3 quotes to get this immediately removed, and we just wanted to make you aware of that.
Do we need to issue a notice or from commission action that it is dangerous and unsafe to authorize?
Our city attorney. No, I visited with the city attorney, and I have the power to do that.
Okay,
And we did not. Imminent. Yeah.
okay.
So, but we will try to reach. I am trying to make contact with the person, but
Good. Yeah, it is definite a danger in the neighborhood with the children during the
Yes.
summer and all the trash and debris.
yep.
So, okay.
And then the next item I have is, we did receive 5 proposals on the wayfinding signage RFPs today. I have a meeting scheduled with our subcommittee, I believe the 21st, to start going through and reviewing those. I know Lacey's tied up with budget, so I tried to schedule it out so that she can get prepared for your meeting on the 15th. The Whiskey Creek Drainage Way from Pine to Cherry, those are due by the 23rd. So just an update there. And then we're having an issue with our apparatus bay drive, and I know that Sean and David are here. As you're aware, on March 3rd, the Board of Zoning Appeals denied extending the variance from the hard surface, so we're really out of compliance with our own code right now. We would like to see if we can go ahead and get bids to get this concreted, because it is creating an issue with the trucks, including the tower trucks with the gravel. And Sean and David are here. They can give you more details on that if you would like.
As you know, the new tower truck is heavy, and so are our engines, and that tower truck, at times, the drive is sinking. Mike has came in and he's put in large rocks as much as we can, but it still continues to sink. And Sean can tell you it's could easily damage the gas tank, isn't that?
Yes, Mike comes in probably at least monthly, has to bring in gravel, keeps washing away. It's hard to keep the bay clean inside, going through the gravel daily. And the gas tank sits low on the back of the tower, and that grade, we're afraid it's eventually gonna bottom out and hit that gas tank on the street.
And Mayor, we don't mean to make assumptions, but just from what we've heard, potentially we're staying there, so that's why we're asking for some direction. If we need to continue what we're doing till you guys make some decisions, we'll make do too, so we're not.
I think with our discussion of looking at the option to add on to the building and remain there, I think it would be to our advantage to go ahead and proceed in that direction if the commissioners are in agreement.
I agree.
I agree also. This is, P&Z has worked with the city and extended this, and it's time we move forward and correct this.
So, my question, since you are having base problems, are you going to get with Sean Turner and have him write up a performance spec of
I think
how
that's
much base to remove and come back with
wise.
certain compactions? And
Yeah, as Sean and I were talking earlier today about it, potentially even a drain before the doors, so we don't, if we get a heavy, it needs to be constructed correctly, and a lot of weight, and you're right, with the way the soil keeps dropping, needs some compaction.
yeah, and looking at the transition from the building to the drives to make sure that, that there's dynamic loading when a heavy vehicle
Right.
load transfers from one slab to another, that the placement of a drain or
Yep.
anything that there's adequate support there that doesn't cause it to move. And, you know, it's not a residential driveway, which I'm sure you guys are aware, but to get a thickness
Right.
and the right base prep that we do it once. And
Would you like
Yeah.
to see us get a request and bring back in 2 weeks for you guys to review a proposal of what the cost would be up from Sean?
You know, as far as I'm concerned, I think if you work with Sean and he gives you a spec that you can give to the three bidders or the bidders to work from, I don't think that needs to come back
Okay.
to us. I think just the approval of the work would
Okay.
be, and I think just for the other two commissioners' information, originally, I think we were told it was going to be about $50,000 in that range for the apron. But, you know, that was an approximate, depending on the base work or whatever Sean could. I don't think Turner was involved with that, and this is definitely needing to be a civil
Civil.
design that we do it once.
Yeah, let's do it right.
Okay. All right. We'll get it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
The next one I have is an update on water projects. Terry?
Trying to see what it says. The phase 2 on the water treatment plant, PEC sent us some options on building designs, the reconfiguring the building, and they're available. I contacted them, and they said they're available to be here on the 23rd, so we're going to bring that to you on the 23rd. To get some direction as what you'd like to see on the building. And as soon as they have that, then they will be putting together the 60% plans for our review. The new water line loan and for the water line project work and the automated meters. We're looking at getting engineering services to do the preliminary engineering report so we can proceed with that loan application. And then we're also, myself and Lydia are working on RFQ for engineering services for that project. Do you have any questions or?
Keep going forward.
Pardon me?
Keep going forward.
Trying.
Thank you, Terry.
And then AWOL wanted me to pass on to you that the shelter did reopen on Monday. They asked people to wear a mask, and they will provide one if you don't have one, and they're only allowing 4 people in the shelter at a time due to the social distancing. So I just wanted to let you know that. And then our big news of the day was our cost share program that was awarded, which is awesome. And so this is the information on that, on the cost breakdown. I did send you a press release earlier today that we sent out to the local media. And I also sent you a copy of the email I sent back to KDOT thanking them once they sent us the award letter. So any questions on that project?
That's going to be a great improvement.
Yes.
It's quite the thing. It's very
It is.
good news. It's not normally the case that the city gets to put state money towards a city street. It's quite frequent that we put the city street money towards a state highway. So
Right.
this is a great benefit to the community. We're going to get a very low-cost, high-quality road out of this, and West Maple I can just see the utilization going way up
Yes.
as the road quality
And we get more
improves.
complaints on this road than any other.
It gives us the opportunity, even though, we're going to spend our share $1 million, but the road and the base is so bad that you can't just spot fix it. It
No.
just continue demanding time and money that we'll do it right once and then be a lot easier to care for.
And that it's estimated this project would start in August of 2021. So, and then moving on to some updates, tomorrow there's First Friday here in the morning at 7:30. And then this weekend, Four Paws is having an event out at the park. Just want to make sure you're aware of that. On the 14th at 6 o'clock is the public forum for the Sunday sales. We have received 3 written correspondences that I have forwarded to you. And then I did modify the ad to encourage participation by either, they could send in their written comments, which was on the previous ad as well. And then I added language that encouraging people to utilize Facebook Live or calling in on the conference call if they would like. And then if they do come in person, we're recommending temperature checks, masks, and social distancing. And so we modified that as well. So I don't know if you have any questions on that. So moving on, we have a special meeting on the budget on the 15th at 9 a.m. So just wanted to remind you about that. And then we have the airstrip attack coming up the 18th and 19th. And so that's all I have.
Okay. Next item is the commissioner comments. Commissioners, Commissioner Hayes, do you have any?
I have no additional comments.
Commissioner Yususi?
Kudos to Lacey, because she worked on along with other people that worked on that West Maple grant. And even though our share is $1 million, the state's contributing almost $1.6 million toward that project. So that's awesome. So
Yes.
thank you to her and whoever else worked on that for their hard work.
And it was a team effort, and she did a great job on that. And we also got, another thing that really helped us is we got a lot of support letters. So we sent out through the chamber to ask for support letters. And actually, that was something that came out of our pandemic call. We were talking about that we needed more support letters, and hey, let's run it on the chamber. And we got a bunch of them, and that really helped us.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay. The city, we've got a lot of nuisance yards that we're mowing, and it seems like as we raise a house through condemnation, we keep increasing our number. Some of them, the owners are absentee owners, and I'm thinking, each year our costs keep increasing that we're not going to get any return. And wondering how can we remove our mowing responsibility from these lots? And the owner, if they didn't maintain their house and it got in the condition, they're not going to be worried about the mower. So, is there a way that we can encourage these owners to contact the adjacent property owners and deed the property over to them? So, it becomes a neighbor's, I guess I'm asking for brainstorming on how we can relieve the problems that we have with the vacant lots, to cut our responsibility and our cost, but then also to beautify the neighborhood. By the time we get around to it and the letters are issued, we're looking at knee-deep grass.
Right. A good example was the house that just come down on North Penn and Sycamore. That house sat vacant for a long period of time. and the house directly to the south of it is a nice house. That would, to me, if I was the homeowner of the house, I would be looking into acquiring that lot. I would have control of what would go or what couldn't go on that lot. But it would just be an extension of current property that I own. And I see some houses where we have removed, and the lots are next to a house that's being kept up. And I'm just kind of wondering, maybe the contact needs to be made. Hey, this lot is available. You have a nice house. Would you maybe be considering maybe inquiring about that lot and maybe taking it on? Because that way you're ensuring that it's mowed and it's kept up, and it didn't fall into somebody else's hands that has no intention of doing anything with it except letting tall grass grow. But we have lots around town that property owners that are located next to them could actually take in, control, and not have to worry about those things that come down the road. A good example is on South 10th Street, a couple about blocks down from the Lutheran church. That nice house in the middle of the block, he bought those lots to the corner. I think he's put a garage on one, and he's got a big garden on the other, and the last lot is empty. But he controls that whole block. So as long as he's control of it, he's never going to have to worry about who's going to come in. Were they going to take care of the property? Are they not? And maybe that's a place to start, saying, this lot's cleared. It's adjacent. You got a nice house. You can control it. And these properties are going for very little money. Would you consider maybe considering acquiring the property? So whatever comes to our hands, and we don't have to deal with it.
And one thing, we don't want to take it in as a donation to the city, but I don't know if we can get contact with people to start talking about donating it to their neighbor. It could benefit everyone, beautification of the city, and also then cut our cost of mowing. But if it becomes our property, then there's a solution. Then it's not addressed any further. But I think it's something we need to, maybe we could come up with an idea or how we can get it moving out of our responsibility.
Mayor, as part of that, there would be nuisance costs that are probably assessed on those lots, including potentially the demolition cost from previous structures that may not want, an owner may not want to take that on, so the city would have to forgive those costs.
Right.
If you wanted to make that work.
Right.
And thank you to April, who told David, who told me.
Yeah, if, in the end, we forgive them. If they're sold at tax sale, we forgive them, and that's
Yeah,
good.
you're usually not going to get it anyway. It's just,
Yeah.
are you going to wait the 3 years or whatever for it to get on the tax sale and let it sit there for 3 years and mow it 3 years?
That's what I'm thinking, if we could, the logic thing would be the owner to contact adjacent property owners and say, hey, I'll give it to you, and then it's something that they could come to us and we could forgive the cost. It would beautify the neighborhood immediately, and then cut our expenses considerable, and we're not going to get the money anyway. But
Right.
Are we, on those nuisance costs, are we spending somewhere in excess of between $25,000 to $50,000 to $30,000 or $35,000 a year?
For the mowing or for the demolition?
Just for the mowing.
It varies.
Okay.
Lacey, do you remember, is it like, it seemed like the last one was what, 14? Or did you do it, David? Was it 14,000 the last one, or is it more than that? I'd have to look it up, but we could get you that information.
That last one I saw, it was a little over pretty close to $25,000, I thought, or maybe a little bit over.
Was that for more than 1 year?
No, that was for 2019.
That was 1 year? Okay.
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 It varies.
Okay.
So just a comment, and that is that the root of the problem is that the owner is somehow incapable of maintaining the property. And so even the demolition of a dilapidated structure doesn't really ultimately solve the problem of incapable ownership. So when we have processes in place that don't really finish fixing the problem, this is what we get. We get nuisance lots. And so we should be taking a look at any process that we're trying to implement here to beautify the city or otherwise improve the city's appearance and economic stance, and that is, we need to figure out what problem we're trying to fix and then carry it all the way through so that we know that that problem has been taken care of.
One thing we could do is we could put together a report on what has been assessed over the last 10 years, what we've actually collected during that time. And then that would give you an idea of if we are getting any money back and how much money we're talking about.
Yeah, and an idea.
One thing I will add is, if you recall last year, I believe, maybe it was the year before, we brought to the commission alternate ways of assessing these, or not really assessing, but collecting these fees. And I don't have to assess them on property taxes that will never get paid. I can also send them to collections.
In which case, Lacey, the property owner would pay, not a future property owner, correct? The current
Correct.
property owner, when it,
So that is my intention this year, to not put anything on property taxes, but to send them to collections so that they stay with the owner.
Well, that might speed up a solution too. If you're gonna come after me, and the way it is now, I'm an absentee property owner, you're gonna mow it, you're gonna put it on my taxes, you're gonna charge me, but I'm not gonna pay it. And I don't really want the property anyway, but I don't know what to do. So it gets mowed once, twice a year, so what? I'm not gonna pay it. But now if it comes after me, then I'm gonna say, well, how can I get rid of this? My neighbor, I'll contact, they'll probably call us and wanna give it to us first. But then we say, no, call your neighbors. If you're gonna give it to us, why not give it to your neighbor or give it to the adjoining property? And maybe that might be part of the catalyst to address the problem completely, like Commissioner Hayes said. I think, yeah, we got to look at the whole picture and get a solution at the time. So this is good. Maybe we can come to a solution, but I think this good as a start. So if you'll get that information, and thanks for that input, Lacey.
Yeah. Hey, Mayor, can I back up just a minute? Because I did think of something that I would like to, on Commissioner comments. Okay. And it's something that we talked about several months ago. It concerned, I believe it's 1529 West Laurel, that trailer park, and the lady had come and wanted to give that property to the city with 18 or 19 mobile homes on it. Is that property, that is part of the flood zone?
the flood zone is on part of the property, not the entire property. But at that time, the commission did deny that request, but we have talked internally about that it could be a potential, if the city wanted to take that on, that we could potentially clean that up in-house. Once anything was abated, then you'd have to determine, what you would want to do with it, but it is quite an eyesore.
It is, and I believe, isn't that about a 4.1 acre site?
Yeah, it's around 4 acres.
That would get rid of an eyesore that's been there for a good number of years, and maybe a chance, that is zoned M1?
Yes.
Light industrial?
I believe so. I'll double check.
So that would make it available for 4 acres, a pretty good site. Could maybe be turned into something else.
Yeah, or it could be rezoned to something else.
Or rezoned to something else, but it's an eyesore that's been there forever.
Yes.
And it would sure be nice to have the site cleared off, at least see what the cost would be. If we did it in-house, there'd be the abatement costs of
Right.
the trailers, but other than that.
Other than that, they think they
They're
could
already on
do
the
it. I
payroll.
mean, they
Yeah.
think that they could take out the rest and save
Yeah.
on some demolition costs to get it cleaned up.
Okay. There's no, let's see, all the utilities have been disconnected. There's the only thing that's left there would be gas lines, and the electric's already been removed from all that. You're
I
just
think
looking at.
David can comment
You're
on
just
that.
looking at metering pedestals that fed wire into the trailers, but
Yeah,
the infrastructure for the transformers and all those have already been removed. You're just saying.
Evergy's got most of their stuff out, but I think it's disconnected, but all the Atmos, water and sewer lines are all still present, correct, Terry? And and of course, some of the bases for the trailers were sitting on, and so there would be some work to get all of that along with the trailers out of there.
Okay. Just a thought. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Well, that was the only comment I had. I guess maybe the only other thing, elaborate on the COVID-19 precautions. We've got a lot of events coming up, and you could see the airstrip attack, and we're talking about our concern as we see the resurgence of cases. And I think we have to realize that the COVID-19 is going to be with us for a while, and the best solution is for us to take the responsibility of protecting ourselves and look that we're going to have to live with it, and be prepared that you take precautions with cleansing. The masks are critical. We've got the airstrip attack. We can be prepared and to enjoy it, to keep the economy going. Just, everybody wear a mask, watch your social distancing, and we can get through it and keep going forward if we acknowledge that it's there. But we can't go back to the way it was before and see it go away. We're all going to have to take the responsibility of protecting ourselves and take those measures, and then I think we can see a decrease in the effect. But we've got to be part of living, but just live with it and be prepared that you protect yourself as much as you can. So,
Mayor and Commissioners, would you like me to see if that area, that property owner is still willing to, would still be willing to donate that to the city and do some additional due diligence to bring that back with some potential costs to clear that?
if we don't have a need for it, I don't think we need to take it, but
You could sell it after you cleaned it
We
up.
can proceed with condemnation
Yeah, you
to
could do
clear
that
up
as
the
well.
site.
Okay, well, we could do it that way then.
I think it's as big of an eyesore as anything that we've talked about so far. There's just more units, and we need to take some action to get it cleaned up.
Okay, so we'll start condemnation proceedings on that.
Perfect.
Agreed?
Indeed.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, next item on the agenda is public concerns. Do we receive any requests? Okay. The next item on agenda is executive session, and I move that we recess for an executive session for review and discussion of city manager applications pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception, KSA 75-4319B1, and we'll be back in session at 7:40 in the Civic Center.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carried. We're back in session. There's no action to be taken from our executive session. So that brings us to the next item on our agenda is adjournment. And I make a motion that we adjourn.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. We're adjourned.